right.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which we check what exactly is good journalism. That's what I do here. I check journalism. It's a news show, don't you know? At least for tonight. So, again, you think I almost don't write these intros or something. And I come to you live from Crater Valley on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Territorial Thursday. Yes, we return once again to the wonderful world of not off-brand, but instead this time an actual TED Talk. I think I got it wrong the last time I claimed such, but now it is true. This is a TED Talk. Cream of the crop, top of the heap, a #1 TED Talk. It's going to be great, right? No, I hope so. I mean, it might be interesting. It's not the usual fare as far as subject matter, but I'll get into why I picked this one in a moment. Before then, who's joining me on this beautiful Thursday evening? Noah Asensio. Good evening. Plague Trucker Zach. Good evening. Tier Alexander. Good evening to you. Mike R. Good evening. Shady Grin. Good evening. Keeverdam. Good evening to you. And thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the links to the GoFundMes for our friends AJ, Roan Harushan, Natalie, and Angela Ariaga. In particular, I know I'm playing favorites tonight, but that's just the way I am. Please take a look at Roan Harushan's link there. His family is, it's one of those situations where every personal or abstract crisis that could hit at the same time just happened to hit all at the same time recently. And Roan and his family could really use some support if you guys have the ability to do so. So if you can donate, please do so. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can, share those links out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you for that, Keeverdam, for posting those. And thank you, everybody who considers donating or sharing. Myrai Vegeta won't be able to watch live, but I haven't saves to listen during my second job. I'm guessing that Mirai was typing on a phone or something. Hello from the future. Well, hello from the past. I guess if you're seeing this later or something. Anyway, Tony Giff, good evening. The best Remy, good evening. Who else is here? Derek LaRue. Thank you, Derek LaRue, as always, for your continued support and generosity. Really appreciate it. It's very generous of you. Hope you're having a good evening and hope you enjoy the show. Alan Thyler, good evening. Advocatus Diaboli, good evening. Jonathan Peterson, good evening. Adabisi, good evening. Lurking Gopher, good evening. Draco Rincewind, good evening. Brittany Holland, good evening to you. Simon Willikins, good evening. Daryl Brewer, good evening. Angelverse, thank you so much, Angelverse, for the super lemon and very simping lime, I'm assuming. Lime and lemon. Thank you, Angelverse. Appreciate it. Hope we're having a good evening as well. Who else is here? Johnny Hellcat, good evening. And Urcule De Stefano. I hear Urcule De Stefano had a birthday recently. Does Urcule De Stefano want me to embarrass him with a birthday song? I don't have to. I can. You let me know. SWD40, good evening. Spoonie the Rebel, good evening to you. And I think that's everybody I see. If I missed you, if you're lurking, or if you're in the future, good evening. So yes, tonight, war journalism should be rooted in empathy, not violence. Now, as usual, I didn't watch this. As usual, most times, I didn't read anything about the description. I was just caught by the title because I'm looking at this. And I just recently did, if you know or don't know, an episode of my series, Living on Borrowed Crime, where one of the questions on there had to do with journalistic integrity of a kind when it comes to true crime. And so when I saw this title, I thought to myself, I don't want journalism to be rooted in anything like empathy. It should be rooted in truth or objectivity, or at least the pursuit thereof. Because you get into empathy, you get into emotions, and emotions are irrational, and emotions can make you instantly biased. And so if you're telling stories or reporting from a war zone, presumably, unless you're a propagandist, you want to be reporting as objectively and as truthfully as possible, not getting your personal feelings into it. Now, I don't know, I can't tell exactly from the title, of course, what our speaker's angle is going to be on this or what the argument is going to be. Maybe it'll be something completely different. Maybe it'll take me completely off guard and I'll be entirely on board. I don't know. But I'm just not quite sure. But rooted in empathy, not violence. Well, if you're reporting on war, you're going to be reporting on violence because war is inherently violent. Now, if you're talking about just reporting on war for the sake of like, it bleeds, it leads kind of mentality, I guess you could call that sort of cynical. But again, the question is, it should be rooted in truth, not emotion, really. But anyway, yes, with certain conflicts taking place around the world right now, both in Ukraine, a probably oncoming further conflict in the Middle East, which you could say that any day of the week, but right now, at least, there's a particular one. War journalism. The subject matter seemed a little timely, so I thought I'd look at this too. Okay, Ercolita Stefano says, go ahead, scribe, sing away. All right. Well, Ercolita Stefano, I hear it's your birthday or has been your birthday in the last 24, 48 hours. And therefore, this one's for you. And a 1 and a 2. Happy birthday to you. A happy birthday to you. A happy birthday, Ercolita Stefano. A happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Ercolita Stefano. I don't know what that was, like some kind of like malformed Elvis or something. I don't know. I make it up as I go along. Random American, good evening. Full Metal Joker, good evening. And with that, all right, everybody, today's bingo card is bingo card B. B is in the Battle of Hoover Dam. That was the winner on the poll for most popular pop culture battle. I had the Ascension War on there. I had Battle for Hoover Dam, and then the Clash at Cobra La. And Battle for Hoover Dam won. So bingo card B, links to the bingo cards are in the description. And if you wait around till the end of the stream, or you fast forward to the end of the stream, there will be a link and a secret word to join the Discord server. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to start off with a few seconds for a sound test. This one clocks in at just under 15 minutes, so regulation TED Talk length. That's what she said. Let me know if you can hear it, and then we will proceed. I had to mute the first part because of the music cue.
If you load up my social media feed right now.
I won't, but if I did, what? Okay, so if I load, if I were to load up your social media feed right now, you guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat. Let's see, Hausfer143 or 143. I don't know why. I somehow whenever I like speak German, it has to come out like kind of mean for some reason. I don't know. Let's see. Sounds good, says Mike R. Little loud, says Random American. Well, I mean, I can turn it down, or you can, I guess. Also, good evening, John Gamesman. All right. If I were to look at your social media feed
and give it a quick scroll, it's like experiencing frighteningly different alternate universes.
Well, you know, given how many times I've tweeted out stuff about the MCU, I'm probably on the same page.
Even if you weed out the trolls, the extremists, those people I would say who cling to the extremes of reality.
Why do you have those people in your feed? The extremes of reality? Okay.
Everyday, normal people's experiences of major world news events are so frighteningly different. It would make you question if there is a reality at all.
Well, as they say, truth can be in the eye of the beholder as well as beauty. But yeah, everybody's got an opinion. There are different perspectives on everything. So you're experiencing social media. I don't know what to tell you. If you ask 100 people about the same subject, you're probably going to get 100 variations on different things. Also, in the chat, senior staff reporter and chief Florida correspondent Colleen Bernier. Hello, Colleen Bernier. Good evening to you. Yes, so everybody's different, and?
We live in a world where there are 1,001 ways to communicate.
Not really. There's the written word, there's spoken language, and there's some kind of like visual cue kind of thing. So pretty much 3 ways to communicate. I mean, in the 30,000 foot level sense.
And yet we've completely forgotten how to speak to each other.
Admittedly, I am kind of a hermit, but last I knew, I can talk to people. I've had many discussions with people. Now, you're not going to take the angle of not everyone agrees with me, therefore there's some kind of problem with other people, are you?
As a journalist, I'm among the few people who really can and should talk to all sides.
Well, anyone can talk to all sides or entertain all sides if they choose to consume different opinions from different places. Being a journalist does not somehow make you special in that regard, but I suppose professionally speaking, you should be, expected to maintain that kind of professionalism and, again, objectivity.
That irreverence where I can chat to a fighter on the front lines in Libya, but also march into a presidential office in Kyiv demanding answers is what drew me to this job.
You marched into the presidential office in Kyiv demanding answers. Kyiv, can you confirm this? That was an inside joke, everyone, if you don't know. I see some other people in the chat real quick. I see Attorney Eris, which is kind of funny. I see Attorney Eris because Attorney Eris's avatar is an eyeball. So there you go. And who else is here? Oh, Adabisi, thank you so much. 1001 ways to communicate is a list, even if false. Oh! That is an excellent point. You know what? You got me. You got me, and therefore you got me. All right. Remember, guys, we're on bingo card B. So going over to the bingo card real quick, let's review what we are listening for. And, of course, what Adabisi has already legitimately spotted or heard, I should say. Remember, bingo card B, marginalized or marginalization. Not yet. Self-vilification or wretchedness. We'll see. Contradicts own point or argument. Don't know what it is yet. Feminism. No. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. Privilege. She indicated that with being like, as a journalist, etc. I'll wait. Maybe she'll say something more specific. Also, I don't know what's going on in the background. I'm hoping you can't hear it, but somebody somewhere is using some kind of power tool or something, and it sounds like a dentist's drill. And it's really annoying me. I hope you can't hear it. I'm thinking you can't. But if you can, I apologize. I have no control over that. Benevolent condescension. It's possible we'll get there since she's already sort of saying there's one side that's correct and one side that's right on social media. Or one side that's wrong, I should say. Weightless example. Plays victim. Collectivizes own demographic. As a journalist, I think that counts. So I'm going to circle collectivizes own demographic. Yeah. Economic disparity, not yet. Argumentative non sequitur, not yet. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, not yet. A list, as Adabisi says, yes, circling that one. Mind reading assumes motives, possibly get there. Patriarchy, no. Anecdote that probably never happened, we'll see. Diversity, equity, and or inclusion. White supremacy, childhood or family anecdote. Systemic or institutional, leaves out vital context. Sales pitch for product or service. I guess it depends if she names whatever publication or outlet she works for. And lastly, word salad. So far on the board, we have collectivizes own demographic, free space, and a list. So keep your ears open for other examples. If you think you caught something and I haven't caught it yet, and I don't see it in the chat, otherwise save it for the end of the show because I will get to you eventually. Miranda Stone is in the chat. Oh my gosh, Miranda Stone, queen of the Discord. Good evening, Miranda Stone. Also, Nobody You Know and Antler the Mad. Good evening. All right. Anyway, you were saying what now?
I guess you could call me an accidental war correspondent.
That sounds like the worst kind of luck. Like you just slipped on a banana peel and fell into a war one day with a notepad and a pencil.
I don't really like the phrase war correspondent as I think it's a bit dehumanizing, but it's the quickest way to explain what I do.
Why is it dehumanizing? I honestly don't know. Holy cats! What? Keeverdam? Keeverdam, this is a family show! Wait a second! Holy cow, Keeverdam, that's ridiculously generous of you. Wow, I can confirm that I've been invaded. Oh, no. What was it? A burly Russian by any chance? Oh no! What did I just say? Why did I say that? I don't know. Well, thank you, Keeverdam. I hope I hope the exit strategy is a gentle one. Ah.
And it's accidental because honestly, I'm really frightened on front lines.
Well, I think any rational person, whether correspondent or soldier, would be on the front lines.
And I'm also really terrible at identifying military hardware.
Well, then I guess maybe you need more practice. Of course, I guess why would you want to have more practice being a war correspondent?
There's a running joke that journalists think everything is a tank. Yes.
Well, I mean, if it can stop a bullet at least once, it could be a tank.
Kind of true. But the region where I was born, the region I grew up in, and the region I specialized in, the Middle East, has been ravished by war.
Has been for thousands of years.
Particularly after that beautiful explosion of hope with the 2011 uprisings was largely stolen by authoritarian regimes.
Yeah, they have a tendency of doing that, don't they? Yeah, the Arab Spring was a really interesting thing to watch at the time. For those of you in the chat who are too young to remember this, it was something else. It was really bizarre. I think, was that the Arab Spring or was that something else? My own memory is failing me now. Was the Arab Spring 2011 or was that after? I'm trying. When was the Arab Spring? Hold on. Was it the Arab Spring? When was that? Was that 2011? Am I just totally off my... No? Yeah, no, that was right. Okay. All right, just making sure. I mean, there have been other uprisings and things. She didn't say specifically, but I was just like, wow, was it really that long ago? Dang, I feel old. Now, you may be able to hear sirens in the background. That might be the comedy police, because I don't have any handy, or I tried to steal some from somebody and I failed at it. Anyway.
Since then, my scope has widened to include conflicts like Ukraine, as the tectonic plates of global politics has shifted.
Well, if you were a war correspondent, you really would have no other choice but to focus on Ukraine, because it's the first major military conflict in that part of the world since World War II. So I don't break your arm patting yourself on the back for that one.
And so, in many ways, I see a really wide spectrum of sides, probably quite a unique spectrum of sides that transcends those echo chambers that X and Meta are desperate to funnel us into.
Oh, okay. So you are better. Okay.
And what I'm seeing right now is more division among people than ever.
Wow, really? In times of war, global conflict, and political unrest? It's just, boy, if only I were a journalist, guy. You know, gosh, I wish I was a journalist to be able to see these things, to be able to notice these things, you know, because unlike our speaker, I live in a tiny, tiny little echo chamber where I only hear the same thing over and over again, all the things I like to hear. And I don't know what's going on outside of it. And anybody that says anything otherwise, oh my God, I hate them forever. Don't you wish you were a journalist? Tyr Alexander, yeah, in more ways than one now, she has denoted her privilege, her higher authority or something, because she's just so worldly. Maybe she'll prove me wrong. Maybe she'll say something here that'll give me something to latch onto. Okay, all right. So you see all the angles. You can see into the infrared of society and national interaction. Okay, go ahead.
And that division is more violent than ever. More violent than ever. And that division is so fundamental, it's almost existential.
Okay, and?
One person's perception of reality cannot exist alongside someone else's.
Yes, it can. I mean, unless, of course, your perception of reality means that you have to act against anyone not sharing your perspective of reality. In that case, then probably. And that's kind of why the Middle East is in perpetual warfare, isn't it?
Whole communities are being otherized.
What?
Genocidal language is being bandied around like people are using song lyrics.
Well, you ain't just whistling Dixie. We've seen it from both sides of the proverbial aisle, both here and abroad. And you're just telling me this because, what, I didn't notice beforehand?
To borrow a phrase from a colleague who I deeply respect, who was a journalist for many years and
Are you going to name this person?
now works in disinformation.
Works in disinformation? Works in, like, for or against?
What we're seeing right now is the total collapse of discourse.
Okay, now, on that point, I can agree. You know, respectful disagreement, civil discourse is something of an art that is dying, and it's being manipulated to die because it's more advantageous for those in power to have people who are very tribal and not going to see the other side, meet them in the middle, or anything else. So I wouldn't say it's a collapse of discourse. It's an architected degradation of discourse. But I don't want to get to conspiracy theory here because that would make me a right-winger or something.
Now, the first group to be blamed for any breakdown in societal communication is usually the mainstream media.
Well, I mean, why'd you put quotation marks around that? Wait, you are not going to indemnify the mainstream media from fueling the divisive discourse fire, are you?
I'm not entirely sure what everyone means by the mainstream media.
You don't know what anybody means by the mainstream media. Really? You're a journalist professionally, correct? Okay, well, I mean, I could name the networks and newspaper publications for you if you'd like to know what the mainstream media consists of in general terms. You don't know what the mainstream media means. I don't believe you.
I know that I'm frequently accused of being it. Like,
who do you work for? What outlet, what publication do you work for? If I recognize it in an instant, I will tell you whether or not it's the mainstream media or not.
Like it's a cartoon villain, which I guess is kind of flattering, right? Little old me, Beltrue, responsible for every major media outlet on the planet.
No. What publication do you work for? You as an individual might be fine. But if the overall tone and tenor of your publication or outlet leans one way or the other, or highlights some stories and, downplays others, then yeah, your organization, whatever it is, may be part of that whole divisive problem you are complaining about. Will you tell us who you work for? And in the chat, if people are like Googling her, and I'm not looking at the chat right now, I want her to tell me who she works for. Who do you work for? If you already know in the chat, I'm not looking, not because I don't care, but I don't want to. I want to see if she's going to tell us, if she's going to say something. Because right now it sounds like she's making apologia for the media writ large, as though that makes any sense to her own argument.
But although I'd like to defend my compromised profession.
Okay, so your profession is compromised. Wait, what?
There might be a tiny nugget of truth in it.
Wait. There might be a nugget of truth in complaints against the mainstream media for contributing to the divisive discourse in this country or in the world in general. Really? There may be a nugget of truth. Oh, well, I mean, appreciate you making that allowance.
And that truth,
yes,
might just be key to fixing this.
Okay. What tiny nugget of truth is the key to fixing this, as in the collapse of discourse?
I'd like to tell you a story.
The floor is yours.
For the last 2 years, I've been covering Europe's bloodiest war in generations.
That would, I'm assuming, be Ukraine. Yeah.
Ukraine.
Yes.
In April 2022, when the Russians withdrew from around the capital, Kyiv, my teams and I went up there.
Oh, the capital, Kyiv. The Russians withdrew from Kyiv. Kyiv, your invasion has ended.
After a pretty horrendous day of reporting, we stumbled upon the body of a young Ukrainian man.
Please don't show a picture of it on this TED Talk, or else I'm going to get in trouble with my own channel thing.
He'd been bound, he'd been shot in the back, and his body had been dumped by this abandoned Russian camp.
Yeah. Bad things happen in war.
We spent a year trying to find out who he was, what happened to him, what happened to his family. And in the process, we uncovered a devastating part that plagues every conflict.
That people die and there's a fog of war?
The desperate search for the missing and for the dead.
Yes. Okay. If that's the angle you're coming at this with, then maybe I don't have as much of a complaint about the title as I initiated with it, but still. Okay. So is that now your chosen sort of niche war corresponding?
During the course of filming this investigation, which became my first feature-length documentary, The Body in the Woods.
Oh, okay. A sales pitch for product or service. Circling that one. All right. Sales pitch for product or service. Also, I don't know. I don't know what the mainstream media is. Is that word salad, or is that an anecdote that probably? No, I'll wait. I'll wait.
We met a teenage boy, a Ukrainian teenage boy called Vladislav. Vladislav's mother, his only parent, had been shot dead by Russian soldiers as she tried to deliver humanitarian aid outside of Kyiv.
And I got nothing except I got a pause here and there, and that's, yeah, it's kind of hard not to be detached when it's like this war a million miles away and people you don't know and everything, but still you just think about it for a second. Just imagine if that had been my mother. Yeah.
Vladislav was desperately looking for her body, and in fact, he'd actually been given the wrong corpse to cremate at one point.
Ew.
Orphaned and alone, he moved in with his lawyer, who was helping him in the quest.
Moved in with Vladislav had his own lawyer? Okay. And apparently raising a hedgehog.
All he had left were a few belongings and a pet hedgehog. The reason I'm telling you this today
is to advertise your documentary. Oh, sorry. That would be too cynical.
Is because when we did the initial first screening, the first feedback we got was that while this was definitely a documentary about war,
it was not a war documentary.
There wasn't a single image of a frontline trench in it.
Okay.
In fact, the only videos of tanks and soldiers appeared at the beginning when we were setting the scene.
So they did appear in the film.
We had that footage from our own reporting, from our own archives. We had the footage of incoming projectiles, of frontline artillery positions, but for whatever reason, it had ended up on the cutting room floor.
So wait a second. Okay. Please don't tell me that this entire TED Talk is based on the fact that somebody saw your documentary about a kid's mother missing in a war zone, and they criticized you for it not looking like a war documentary. Is that what this is? Okay.
Subconsciously, we'd realized that the most impactful way to show the devastation of war was in the image of a teenage boy, his hedgehog, and his heartbreak.
Okay. And that is a stylistic choice of your own making, and some people are going to appreciate it and some people won't. That's not the collapse of discourse. That's people having differing opinions. So, okay, we're only 6 minutes into this 15-minute deal. I'm really hoping that this entire thing is not based around her fragile ego over people not getting her documentary the way she wants it to be got.
Powerful war reporting didn't need to constantly front-load violence.
The entire basis of your documentary is violence. It is a war zone. It is a woman who was killed. Her body is missing. Her son is distraught. He is searching for her in a war zone. Your entire story does not exist without the cloud of violence hanging over the entire thing. Now, of course, that's just my opinion, but...
The 24-hour news cycle that we have pinging relentlessly into our phones was really born in and because of war.
Yes. I mean, you could go back to the Gulf War and CNN's coverage. Because CNN really was the first 24-hour news network, and they established themselves, most memorably during the Gulf War, since they were the only news organization who was there practically from the moment the war began. And then, of course, after 9/11, you'd have the Chiron going across the bottom of the screen 24/7. But anyway, sorry, I'm just doling out facts to sound really, impressive about my trivia knowledge.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, man. Sometimes I even impress myself.
That the first dedicated 24 hours a day news network, the first global one, CNN, really cemented its name in 1990.
Wait. Okay, I swear to God, I have not watched this ahead of time. I did not listen to her own speech and then paraphrase it. Man, that's great. That's great. I love it. Yeah, cemented their place in history as 24-hour news network, the only news organization in Baghdad from the beginning, right?
With its on-the-ground coverage of the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
Al Jazeera Arabic rose to global prominence with its coverage of the 2003 invasion of Iraq.
Well, yeah, that's true. I hadn't heard of Al Jazeera until the invasion of Iraq. There's actually a documentary. God, what was it called? I forget what it was called. I think it was called Control Room or something like that. And it was behind the scenes documentary about Al Jazeera and stuff during the Gulf War and all that. It was in many ways a puff piece advertisement for Al Jazeera, but there were some good moments in there either way.
Now, I think if I was to ask all of you today to imagine what war reporting looks like, you probably conjure up an image of someone in a helmet, a flak jacket, maybe dodging out of the way of an incoming projectile, an image that often becomes the story and even the headline.
Yes, someone who is reporting on the war, not necessarily on the periphery, not necessarily about the aftermath, but on the events of the actual conflict taking place. Yes, that is classically what I think of as war correspondent. Yes.
But if you think about that for a second,
and I have,
that doesn't really go beyond visualizing the dictionary definition of war.
I guess. So, are you feeling left out? Again, does this all go back to you made a documentary related to the aftermath, the ongoing aftermath of the Ukraine war? You got criticized for it not really being a war documentary, and this TED Talk is here just to defend your ego over definitions. I mean, again, that's what it sounds like to me. But again, that's just my opinion.
Now, don't get me wrong. This
Too late.
As an incredibly important part of war to show. But I worry if it drowns out, if it dominates other sides of conflicts, like the devastating impact on civilians whose lives are upended, who lose their loved ones, who have to live with life-shattering injuries, then maybe it tips into the fetishization of violence.
Well. Okay, so, well, then here's what you have to do. You have to start showing dead bodies on the air. I mean, one of those powerful images that really shaped at least this nation's consciousness about war, classically, was, coffins. Coffins coming home from Vietnam. Actually seeing the costs of war right in your face without any censorship, really, just like, this is the reality of the situation. And our media has, over the course of the last several decades, softened war. Does make it feel more like, kind of a thing that's happening off in the distance. Doesn't make it feel like it's close to home. Doesn't make it feel like there's any real price to it, because we're scared. I guess the media is scared of like showing, the aftermath of violence. So in that regard, I suppose you might have a point. You can't make people fear or be disgusted by war if it's all sanitized for everyone's consumption. So on that point, if that's the point that she's making, because that's what it sounds like, then maybe you have a point.
I think part of the problem might be the historical patriarchal structures within the news industry, which still a little bit present today.
Patriarchy. Okay, so the patriarchy. Oh, because men are fetishizing violence and war, guys. The patriarchal structures. Okay, systemic or institutional. I'm going to circle that one as well. Okay, so it's the patriarchal. Say that again for me. Sorry, let me back up.
Civilians whose lives are upended, who lose their loved ones, who have to live with life-shattering injuries.
Yes, including the soldiers that are going off to fight the wars, mostly men.
Then maybe it tips into the fetishization of violence.
For individuals, it could. Do you have any evidence of this? Do you want to give us some examples?
I think part of the problem might be the historical patriarchal structures within the news industry, which still a little bit present today.
You think part of the problem might be the patriarchal structures. Okay, well, we just took a turn. All right. Well, with a declaration like that, I need some active examples. Proceed.
Breaking news, there are female war correspondents.
I know there are. Since watching the news since October 7th of last year now, in previous conflicts, and of course you are standing there in front of us telling us you're a war correspondent. So how's that patriarchy working out for you?
There are even women editors-in-chief.
Oh my gosh, are there? Okay, benevolent condescension, circling that one. Serious? Really? There are women in news? I had no idea. Let's see. Benevolent condescension. There it is. Okay. Yeah. Tell me more about how people from both genders end up in the same industry.
But to me, it's not about what gender you identify as.
Actually, it is, because you just talked about a patriarchal structure and you wanted to point out the gender presence of one versus the other. So, okay.
But how we as journalists perceive and communicate what we see.
Then why bring it up? If that is your main focus, why even bring up the gender that people quote unquote identify as? So your gender's fluid for you too? Okay. Let's see. Argumentative non sequitur. Circling that one. She did it to herself. All right. So you don't want to focus on the gender, even if you bring up gender. Really want you to focus on the perspective. Okay.
And so often, frontline coverage has been quite macho.
Frontline coverage has been quite macho. Well, here's the thing. As you said before, intimated, being on the front lines is a scary thing, right? Okay, someone who would elect to put themselves on the firing line in order to report back to the world what is taking place in a war zone, I got to tell you, whether you're a male or a female, to me, that broadcasts, no pun intended, but I'll take it, a certain level of cojones beyond the dint of normal people. So, yeah, I think it takes some guts, some steely nerves to willingly put yourself on a war zone, in a war zone, at the front lines or otherwise, and not actually be a combatant just so you can tell people what's happening. I got to give credit to people who do it, regardless of what outlet they're doing it from. So, yeah, it is macho.
In fact, for a long time, it was known in the industry as the bang bang.
The bang bang. You see, if somebody told me, hey, being a war correspondent is called the bang bang, I'd be like, oh, so that refers to like explosions and gunfire?
The bang bang.
Go ahead. Upside, inside, out, living la vida. Wasn't there a bang bang in there somewhere? I don't know. Maybe there was. Maybe there's another song. Anyway, for some reason, she says bang, 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 bang. And I think of... Anyway, yeah. And how do you decide to perceive that? Or what is the literal definition in the news industry for that phrase?
What a phrase, right?
For a war zone? Yes, I'm thinking bang, bang, you're dead.
Some of the most devastating moments in human history reduced to the literal sound of the murderous machines.
Okay, I don't know if you know the phrase gallows humor. Okay, shorthand for things, trying to lighten the mood in the darkest of times. That's what it's there for. A little bit, to take the edge off, even an iota. So now you're going to criticize. I don't know what we're doing here, honestly, at this point. But Assassin the Gray, thank you so much. Fun fact, every war journalist I encountered, 10 plus in Iraq and Afghanistan, was a leftist dirtbag opportunist looking to declare the war is indeed lost and get a Pulitzer for it. Yes, personal ambition, ego, and everything else. I mean, the people, at the same time, the people who put themselves on the front lines to report the news, again, I have to extend a certain level of respect for putting your life on the line for your career, as I would for just about anybody who does, and certainly for our men and women in uniform. It does take most times a certain level of ego to think you're going to be the one out there doing journalism in general. People want to be in front of the camera, and grab the next big story or make the next big scoop. So I could believe it. I could believe it. And actually, if you watch, I think it was called Control Room. Somebody can correct me, but there was a documentary dealt with Al Jazeera, and it was called Control Room, and it dealt with covering the war from CENTCOM and everything else, and all the ridiculousness that went behind the scenes with the press. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of ego and one-upsmanship and quips and things. Thank you, Assassin the Gray, by the way. Appreciate it. And thank you for your service as well. Okay. Anyway, what was your argument? Sorry, I got to back up a little bit. What were you talking about?
Bang bang.
Bang bang, right, bang bang.
What a phrase, right?
Right.
Some of the most devastating moments in human history reduced to the literal sound of the murderous machines.
All right, what would you call it? What would you call it instead? If that's your big complaint. Actually, I don't even know what your main complaint is so far. So far, it's been, I made a documentary about a victim of war, and people said it wasn't really a war documentary. And now my feelings got hurt, so I'm going to stand on a stage and complain about that in the most obtuse way possible to make it seem like everybody else is the problem and I'm not just having a personal crisis. But now a phrase has made you upset. All right. What would you replace it with? I'm still waiting for your solutions to these problems you keep bringing up.
Of course, there are always human interest news pieces.
So you're not. Why do you keep bringing up things you're not going to address? They call it bang bang. This is serious, guys. It's not bang bang. It's war journalism. But anyway, let's back up to a different subject altogether. Okay.
The literal sound of the murderous machines. Of course, there are always human interest news pieces.
But
in journalism, they're always called the softer stories, which puzzled me because sometimes they're the most gut-wrenching part of any conflict. And I was really struggling with this and what makes good journalism after a particularly tricky trip to Ukraine last year, where I just met so many families whose lives have been upended.
Well, in the context of war journalism, I'd say they're called softer because they're not in the midst of combat. I don't think that's, at least in my mind, it doesn't diminish the importance of the story, but that's my first interpretation. But again, that's just my opinion, but you've decided to take it personally.
That I decided to print off a sticker and put it on my laptop where it remains today.
Truth and compassion. Again, I understand where she's coming from, but the best journalism is the most dispassionate, right? Striving for objectivity. I get it. You know, if you want to tell a story, a human interest story, if you really want to get into someone's life and everything else, it's unavoidable, as long as you're not a sociopath or something, right? But ultimately, you should be striving for truth and objectivity, not truth and compassion, because you're there to report what's happening, tell people what's going on. And if it's a sad story, if it is an injustice or something else that's demonstrably so without having to introduce your emotions to it, then that will come out in the story. You don't need to inject your emotions into it. It'll just be self-evident.
And that sticker reads truth and compassion.
Very brave, very stunning.
For so long, I'd lived by the maxim, the truth will set you free.
Well, you know, yeah. But
as I went from horror to horror, from war to war, I realized that sometimes the truth was a bit blurry.
Those two sentiments are not mutually okay, you know.
And if we only peddle our own truth, we're in danger of not seeing all sides of the story, as difficult as it is sometimes to reach across that divide.
Then why are you introducing compassion into the equation? Right? You're putting your sentiments, your emotions, your perspective, your values, your virtues, whatever else, into the story as part of the process. So how are you contributing to the solution to said problem in that way?
And that's where we cycle back to the collapse of discourse.
Collapse of discourse. Right. Okay. Tell me again about the collapse of discourse.
Right now, any of you, without even turning on the news or opening a news channel or newspaper, you can access from your mobile phones through social media some of the most horrific images from world news events ever brewed in the darkest cauldron of the human psyche.
Yes, because the capacity to take visual images has been simplified down to nothing in the last 20 or 30 years as compared to previous years where you had to have a camera and film and have it developed, and it was complicated and maybe Polaroids, but otherwise, yeah. Anything and everything is available to somebody who wants to go looking for it. It's true. And
this has only been made worse by social media companies getting rid of their trust and safety divisions.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, internal censorship of information. Isn't this something that you should be applauding? I mean, you want more information out there, right? You want people to understand and have a better sense of the costs of war outside of whatever's sanitized by that mythical entity known as the mainstream media. So you should be for the removal of trust and safety administrations or groups or whatever. Are you just you got a hard on for hating X or something?
It's really staggering to see what humans can do to humans.
It is. It is. And
these days I'm seeing on networks like Telegram, these videos being shared.
Yes.
And they're met with likes and smiley emojis and messages of encouragement.
Well, here's the thing. If the videos show the enemy, ideologically or nationally or whatever, of the person viewing it, then they may indeed like it. Because the people who are bad to them are getting hurt, which is sort of that whole patriotism, whatever else, supporting your troops and bang, bang the enemy kind of thing. Of course, likes and smiley faces are the most ambiguous of shorthands for someone's sentiment. If you decide to interpret that as people happy about this, like they are getting off on it, well, I don't know what to tell you. That's you making assumptions. Or shall we say, mind reading, assuming motives? Yeah, I'll circle that one. Sometimes I'll like a post because I like what's going on. Sometimes I will refrain from liking a post on Twitter because I understand that there's a connotation there, like, oh, am I actually approving of this thing? Or is this just something I want other people to see? In that case, I may share something without liking. There's a little bit of psychology there, sure. But it's a heart, or it's a smiley face, or it's a thumbs up, and short of a comment underneath it, who knows what that means. But anyway, you have what else to say about this?
In the case of Ukraine, some of these videos that show the haunting last moments of soldiers' lives as they're cowering in the trenches and you see that bird's eye view of the grenade dropping on them. Some of those videos are shared on X to comic music.
Yeah, some people have bad taste. And
now, it's not the fault, of course, of conflict journalism. That's not the only reason that we got here.
Conflict journalism. Oh, okay. It's not the fault of conflict journalism. I hadn't thought it was, but okay, if you want to inject that into the conversation.
But I wonder if the history of bang bang journalism, if the entertainment of the news industry, if the pursuit of clicks and likes has in some way contributed.
You wonder? Of course it has. What are you talking? Okay. Of the commoditization of the 24-hour news cycle has been a thing. And you brought it up. CNN. Everybody and their brother were glued to the television in that night vision tracer fire thing going up into the sky because nobody had ever seen something like that before live. And of course, if the ratings go up, they're going to give you more of it. And people have an interest in what's going on in these things. So yeah, where is the line drawn between, just warmongering news versus this is what's happening and so on? I don't know. But what are you asking for here? Again, we're now 10 minutes into this 15-minute long talk. She has brought up a complaint about something, either specific or esoteric. What would you have be done? What would you want? You want more maturity in journalism? Hey, I'm all for it. You want more accuracy and, again, dispassion in war journalism? Fine. Do you want to stop people from sharing information on the internet that you find objectionable? Because I don't know where else you're going with this. Somebody makes a video using war footage and putting a funny soundtrack over it. And this should be, what should happen? What would you like to see happen?
Of course, it's gone well beyond what any news agency can even stomach.
What news agency do you work for that isn't profiting off of reporting this stuff? You're profiting off of reporting this stuff. It might be a benign exploitation, but you are a part of that process. So I hate being a broken record. What are you asking to have done?
Let alone be held responsible for. The violence has morphed into our inability to hold our own pain and yet see the suffering of others.
Speak for yourself.
It has polarized all of us so much that we cannot imagine that there is another side to the story, let alone that there might be a humanity to it.
Speak for yourself.
It's a world where it becomes an extremist position to call for a deeply needed humanitarian ceasefire.
No, it's not an extremist position to call for that. What? I mean, it's on the extreme end of pacifism, I suppose, but it's okay. Anyway,
it's a world where we have a broken discourse.
Yeah, when you assume that everybody and their brother thinks a particular way because they don't think your way, you're right. You are right. You are so far, you have demonstrated yourself to be a sterling example of why there is such a collapse in discourse. Are you willing to allow for the possibility that somebody from the other side of the aisle might have a point, or that their thinking on something may be justified from where they live and in their circumstances and from their personal experience? Or is everybody who doesn't agree with you wrong? Because if that's where you're at, I hate to tell you this, you just might be a bigot.
But it's a world, maybe, where conflict journalism can step up.
How? Okay, you got 4 minutes left. Oh, pardon me, just under 5 minutes left. You got 5 minutes left. You have brought up complaint after complaint after complaint. You told us there's a nugget of truth in thinking that the mainstream media is contributing to this. Okay, but that nugget of truth might be part of the solution. I've been waiting. Go ahead. Yeah, take a deep breath. I know. The emotional labor of this must be just taxing.
For the last few months, and I'd like to share a few more stories.
The floor is yours.
I've been covering the most bitterly divided war of our time.
The war on Christmas?
Gaza.
Oh, Gaza. Okay.
This is the fourth war in Gaza that I've covered, although I should say that foreign correspondents are not permitted to be actually inside Gaza.
Okay, so you sort of covered it from the periphery. All right, like most people. There were some like AP cameras that were in Gaza during the initial airstrikes and everything. So there was some reporting taking place. I don't know if there was like actual reporters there, but I remember seeing plenty of footage from within Gaza.
Apart from on military embeds. So it's up to our brave Palestinian journalist colleagues who are spearheading the coverage at great risk to their own lives from within Gaza.
Okay, and again, it takes some cojones to put yourself on the front lines, but that's too macho. Sorry. Okay. I mean, were any of these reporters men? Were they part of like the patriarchal structure of everything, doing bang bang journalism?
But if we go back a few months, in Israel, the horrors of Hamas's bloody rampage on the 7th of October spurred a lot of society to back the military offensive in Gaza.
Yeah. Can you understand why that is? Can you take your compassion and extend it to that side of the conflict?
But what I learned when I was on the ground was that not everyone was behind it.
Wow. Can you believe it? Not everybody is behind war. Even if something happens that would justify it in the minds of many. Golly gee whiz. So what?
I spoke to family members of those who've been held hostage in Gaza right now by militants. I spoke to family members of those who were killed on the 7th of October. And some of them said to me that they didn't believe that a destruction and a collective punishment of Gaza would do any good.
And they may have a point. And other people who had their families wiped out might have a point of, I want the people who did this to pay the price. So, such is the way of things and has been since the beginning of time. So what, I guess, not to be completely callous about it, but, and
they said not in my name, and some of them have joined protests calling for a ceasefire that are taking place in Tel Aviv right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Vietnam War had protests against the war because it's like, why are we bombing all these people? What are we getting out of it? What's it doing for us? There were protests against the Iraq War. Why are we going there? Saddam didn't bomb us. It was, Al-Qaeda and so on. I mean, there's always a reasonable argument against war or against the scope of war. And
despite the fact they're facing global criticism from people on their own side.
Yeah, imagine that. I remember not that long ago, although now it's a million years ago, back when the Gulf War was starting, anybody who questioned the wisdom of invading Iraq effectively over 9/11 was called unpatriotic or perhaps even committing some form of treason. Yeah, it is manipulative, isn't it? It sucks. So in that sense, I have some sympathy for the people who are saying maybe we should stop and getting criticized for it. So, okay. And before then, Assassin the Grey, thank you again so much. Appreciate it. Did this self-righteous cow count the reporter who was helping Hamas imprison and mistreat those 4 hostages recently rescued on a raid? Hard to say when this was recorded before that news came out. So I don't know, but I would be curious to find out if she did know or does know now what she has to say about that, because that is an interesting example and counter to her little tirade here. But yes, thank you, Assassin the Great. Appreciate it. Yeah, this was posted, I think, within the last week or so or 2, but then you don't know necessarily. I forget if they put a date up at the front or a month and a year on it as to when this was originally recorded. So it might have happened before that news broke. Possible. But yeah, I would be curious to hear what you had to say about that.
There was one interview that struck me.
Mm-hmm.
It was with a man called Jonathan, an Israeli man, and his mother had been killed on the 7th of October.
And did he turn the other cheek and say bygones be bygones or something?
And this interview impacted me so much, I actually had to put my phone on mute because I needed to take a minute to breathe.
Maybe you're getting too emotionally invested in these stories.
Jonathan told me, vengeance is not a strategy. Violence will not fix violence.
And that is a long-held and common outlook on things. So is this entire talk an anti-war talk? Which is fine, but you keep bringing up problems you're not offering solutions to. So I'm still waiting for how we get to a grand solution to this collapse of discourse.
Invest in peace.
You don't have that on the screen, but okay. Invest in peace. And what if there is I don't know, a group, a militant, paramilitary, political machine that is, by its own mission statement, literally bent on the entire destruction of your people, and they just demonstrated that? How do you recommend in this situation that bridge be built? How okay. Not to get too melodramatic here, but if you're going to bring up the war in Gaza on October 7th and what led to October 7th and the response to October 7th and all the forces involved preceding October 7th that led up to that point, etc., what is your grand plan to build up the discourse between the Palestinians and the Israelis to stop the war? And what nugget from the mainstream media's truth is going to contribute to that? You've got 2.5 minutes.
To experience such a searing level of pain, like to have your mother murdered, but yet to see the suffering of others, is the deepest well of compassion that I feel that we can all learn from.
You're not wrong, but I'm a pragmatist here. And you're, at least by implication, meaning to offer some kind of solution or salve to the collapse of discourse. When do we get to that?
It's a well of compassion that's perhaps needed right now as the death toll is soaring in Gaza.
Yes. Make love, not war. And yet here we are. So why? Getting impatient.
As some of the world's most respected rights groups like Save the Children are saying, Palestinian civilians and children are being killed at a historic rate. And it is a deep well of compassion that I feel journalists could learn from to build a better journalism.
A better journalism. Okay, you could have been spending this entire time critiquing conflict journalism as it currently sits and offering alternatives or solutions to what you see as the problems with conflict journalism. And at least that would have been productive. But now we've got 1.5 minutes left, and all you've done is complain about your documentary not being taken seriously, intimating that the mainstream media is somehow not to blame for it, part or parcel of the collapse of discourse, but maybe there's some truth to it. Okay.
A journalism that turns from the patriarchal tendencies to fetishize violence, that tells the true impact of war in and out of the trenches.
Again, maybe if you'd spent your time more wisely here, you could have made a more compelling argument. But you didn't, and here we are.
A journalism that could go some way to helping us heal society.
Oh, you think very highly of yourself. I thought journalism was there to present the truth and the facts, whatever they may be. But now you want to heal society. Okay, well, how do you propose for journalism, conflict or otherwise, to heal the Middle East?
A journalism that might even be able to help fix this broken discourse.
How?
I'm talking to you like I'm the Mother Teresa of journalism, right?
Well, okay, I'll give you credit for self-awareness. I will give you credit for some self-awareness. Also, there you are wearing a helmet and a flak jacket and everything else you were criticizing earlier, right? So, anything you want to say about that?
Right. Like I haven't put on a helmet and a flak jacket and stood repeatedly in front of a camera and talked about the bombs landing all around me.
Okay, contradicts own pointer argument. Circling that one. And I'm getting ready to circle leaves out vital context because complaint, no solution, even the barest idea of one offered. But maybe she'll pull it out of the fire here in the last second.
Like me and my editors haven't messed up news coverage choices and watched with horror the weaponization of words.
The weaponization of words. I'll tell you what, the only killing word is muad'Dib.
I don't know what to say to you all today. I know I can and will do better.
Do better than what? Let's imagine a different world for a second, shall we? Let's imagine a world where our speaker came out and said, I have been a conflict journalist, a war correspondent for, 10 years, whatever it is. And I've been to the fronts of this conflict and this conflict and this conflict and this conflict. And over time, I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of reporting on war. What is useful, what is fetishization, what is unuseful, and so on. And I've come up with 4 major issues with the way that wars are currently reported on. And I think I have some alternatives or some solutions on how to make war journalism better. And then she goes down this list over the course of the talk in 15 minutes, addresses one after the other. Number 1, we do this right now, whereas we should do this. Number 2, that would be, in my estimation, a far more compelling argument for whatever it is that she's just been babbling about here than standing on a stage and effectively trying to get everybody to feel sorry for her. Because she's got it so tough. She's a lone figure fighting this fight of the fights in the fights in the fights. But here we are.
I know that we, the journalists, the storytellers, with our platforms.
You're not storytellers, you're journalists. I don't want to hear a story. I want to hear what's happening. I don't want to hear your personal, compassionate narrative. I want to know what's going on. I want to know where the front is, what gains or losses have been taken by either side. I want to hear what the people on the ground are saying. They're the ones who tell the story. You're the one that reports what's going on. If you want to be a storyteller, write a script, write a novel. You're not in the right business.
Can and will do better. I know that we, the journalists, the storytellers, with our platforms, can help put us on a better path.
Ow!
I know that we, the viewers and the readers, with our ability to direct news coverage through our consumption, can help put us on a better course.
Ow!
It's why I won't take this sticker off my laptop, so it reminds me every day.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that sticker. Oh, what a burden you carry. It must weigh so heavily every time you pick up your laptop. Oh.
And it's why I will continue to shout from the rooftops.
What? What will you shout from the rooftops?
Only truth and compassion together can set us free. Thank you.
Okay, that sound and fury signifying nothing. Nothing. God, how frustrating. Just when I think she was about to come to a point or to offer a solution or to give us some kind of insight or something, nothing. Nothing. And did my eyes deceive me? Or was there a TEDx sign behind her the entire time? Yeah, there's a TEDx. How is this advertised to us? Oh yeah, a TED Talk. I hate it when they do this. They fool me. I think I'm getting the top of the pops, right? I'm getting a TED Talk. No. It's a TEDx talk, just rebranded. Well, I guess, it is as it was on the label, the real label. I was deceived. That was disinformation. Anyway. Also, Mr. Tickle Trunk is here. It's not architected. The problem is much worse. It's natural because of social media. Well, yeah, I mean, everybody falls into their tribes, right? I mean, she's not wrong about the echo chambers. We've known this for a long time. Everybody falls in tribes. I mean, the worst of it, at least just on a purely social media basis, that I witnessed, and most of us witnessed, was during the lockdown, during the pandemic, where you had people cheering on the deaths of others if they happened to be somebody, or they were suspected to be somebody that was on one side or the other of the vaccine issue. If somebody died, like, I bet he took that vaccine, killed him. It was so ghoulish and disgusting. One of those instances where you thought, okay, does humanity even exist anymore? Just seeing death cults, actual death cults, celebratory death cults on social media. So her saying, everybody's just trying to have this on me. Yeah, it does. It really does. And you get that one little message on your Twitter or your Instagram or whatever else. You get that little endorphin hit of, I gotta dig on somebody, or I can contribute and dogpile and this, that, and the other. Yeah, no, I get it. It's true. People are terrible. And social media creates a, bite-sized mob all the time. And anybody witnessing it it seems ginormous, but to most people doing it, just like, they make a tweet and they forget about it 10 minutes later. But it seems like everybody's losing their minds. And I guess in some way we all are, bit by bit, day by day. Anyway, not to get too maudlin about it all, let's move on to the bingo card, because there's not much else to say about our talk except to discuss what we saw. So let's see. This is the bingo card as I have it. I'm going to go over it one more time by myself. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, hold on to them momentarily, and I will get to you momentarily. Marginalize marginalization. Yes, the stories that aren't about the front lines. She was complaining about how the softer stories don't get as much attention. It's not fetishizing violence and so on. So yeah, okay. Apparently that one. Self-vilification or wretchedness. Yes, she did criticize herself for having participated in those very things that she was saying before were the, I don't know, the detractors of being an actual war correspondent or a productive war correspondent. And consequently, because of that, if
bingo. What? Bingo! Yeah! Of course!
So we got our first bingo. Next, feminism. Well, yeah, she did make sure to point out how many women there were in the industry and then dodge away from making that point about 2 seconds later. It was kind of bizarre. But yeah, she did do that too. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. Well, I'm not sure how you have a conversation about perspective and fetishization of war and discourse and so on without effectively, she didn't bring it up specifically, but effectively throughout the deal, bias, unconscious or otherwise, was part of it. And golly gee, as a consequence of that.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
All right, our second bingo. Gosh. Weightless example. I mean, everything in this deal was practically weightless because her point she never even achieved, right? I mean, her argument was we can improve the discourse through journalism. And well, unless her whole solution was just compassion. If that was it, it's just like put some compassion into your journalism. That's gonna stop wars. That's going to cure the discourse. But how? How? And I guess that's the problem, is that she kept bringing up the tease of it, but it never paid off. So what was the purpose of bringing up your documentary? What was the purpose of bringing up how many women there were in the journalism field? Knowing tanks or not? Anyway, plays victim. Boy, howdy. Boy, howdy. I am the lone person out there fighting the good fight. It's kind of ironic. To save journalism and conflict journalism and whatever.
Bingo. What? Of course!
Our third bingo. Okay, moving on. Economic disparity. I don't recall anything about economics in this. I don't think so. Attempt to coin new buzzword buzz phrase. Do I want to credit her with conflict journalism? And of course, she said bang, bang journalism wasn't her saying, it's something that the industry had. Conflict. I mean, I don't know that I'd heard it before per se, but I don't know that it's something she came up with. I don't know. Anecdote that probably never happened. That's a tough one because, like, she did a documentary on that kid. She referenced specific historical events and things. I can't think of an instance where she brought up an anecdote directly or indirectly that didn't happen or was too good to be true. Like, I talked to my 5-year-old and he said, we really should try to find a way to settle in the Middle East or something. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, and even her bringing up, well, I guess whatever gender you identify as. Ooh, well, I don't know if that's enough. White supremacy. No, she brought up patriarchy. She brought up women. She didn't bring up race. Childhood or family anecdote. Did she? Oh, wait, no, yeah, she said she grew up in the Middle East, right? Yeah. She said that it was a part of the world that she knew, that she grew up there. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Works for me. And
I had a dog, and his name was...
What?
I had a dog, and his name was...
Bingo!
Of course!
man, we're just raining in bingos. Leaves out vital context. Yeah. How? How many times did I ask that question? How? In what way? What needs to be fixed? What are the specific problems? How would you address them? On and on and on. And lastly, word salad. Now, here's the tough one. She said a lot of things. I never found myself going, it's gobbledygook. Like it all made sense. It just didn't lead to anything. Does that inherently make it word salad? I don't know. And it's also a bingo square, so I'm going to hold off. So it's your time. I know I didn't leave a whole heck of a lot, but I mean, some of this was just low-hanging fruit. So if you have any arguments for squares to be circled, put them in the chat now. If I've already missed it or something, please just repost it and be sure to tag me in your comment. Assassin the Gray, I do not believe for a New York second that the guy whose mother was murdered on October 7th said, I don't want revenge. Well, it didn't sound too good to be true. And I've heard people say similar things about, you know, the person who killed their loved one. Is that they didn't think that, you know, seeking the death penalty would solve anything and so on. So I can't say there's enough there for me to say it was a perfect anecdote or that it didn't happen. Gave a name. You could probably looked up. So I'm, let's see. Peter says the media tends to paper over how the war got started and who is benefiting from it. They could do something about that, but I doubt they will because they're controlled by the same interests. Yeah, her is just sort of like hand waving away the mainstream media's complicity in the discourse and the divisions and everything else. And again, I don't know who she works for. It sounded like she was more like an independent journalist or filmmaker or something, but that part just really kind of made me go, what? There's a leaves out vital context. Let's see. Tony Gift. TED and TEDx are now just Thursday entertainment or a Scribe MP3 on the way to work. Love it. Hey, I take lemons and I still end up with lemons. It's an amazing process with most TEDx talks or TED talks that are actually TEDx talks. Let's see. Arguments for squares to be circled. Divine Petulance. I did call gobbledygook once. On what? If you can remember. Also, Young Geezer. Hello. Does Young Geezer and Old Guy Gamer hang out together, you think? Is that too much of a contrast? It's sour, however you consume it. Yes. I guess there is a certain amount of bitterness that is unavoidable. Depending on the circumstances. I'm waiting for the day that just by accident I come across a TEDx talk or a TED talk that is just, wow, this is great. Or this is really interesting. I mean, I have had at least one that I can think of off the top of my head. It was the one that I did with Ranting Monkey, where we're looking at how asparagus is going to help cure spinal injuries. I thought it was some kind of like crackpot diet proposal, but no, there was something else to it. You can find that somewhere in the channel. Let's see. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? I know. I think we might have hit the end there. I could see an argument for word salad, maybe, but I need a good one because it's still a bingo square. White supremacy, no. DEI, yeah, I don't want to give too much credit to just bringing up women in the workplace or saying the words identify as. I get that's a little bit social justice wokeness, but not specifically DEI. Anecdote that probably never happened. Yeah, that one's a tough one. Attempt to coin a new buzzword, buzz phrase. I don't think anything she said was brand new. I think I've heard conflict journalism before as some kind of like politically correct version of saying war correspondent. Economic disparity. I'm trying to think of any example in there where she talked about different economies or someone being richer than the other person or something. I don't think I heard anything like that. Don't know. Let's see. Keyword and the one with blind press. Oh, there's a couple I've done with blind press. I mean, I think almost all of them have dealt with disability, specifically blindness, in a couple of places. Yeah, there was at least probably one in there. Let's see. Oh God, I don't remember. It's all a blur. I understand. I understand. Yeah, I could. Let's see. Scribelite, truth and compassion in journalism buzz phrase. Oh, well. No, you know what? No, she did repeat it several times, and she indicated that it was some kind of generalized solution to the problem, I guess. So no, you got good point, Advocatus. Good point. I will agree with you there. Yes. Attempt to coin a new buzzword buzz phrase. There you go. Sure. Fair enough. That's a good one. Let's see. Any other squares to be circled? I'll give it another minute here. In the meantime, I will give a programming note. As always, you'll find me here again next Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, for another TED Excellence. Why do I do this to myself or to you? I don't know. I'm trying to. I honestly came in this like, okay, the title caught me, but I'm curious. What does she mean? How does she mean it? What is she proposing? And I come away with it still asking that question. But, hope springs eternal. Also, there's the Sunday stream at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, if you can believe it, where I'll talk about a thing. I don't usually know what the thing is until Saturday night, sometimes not even until Sunday morning. But you'll find out on Sunday. This week, I was unable, unfortunately, to attend the Tuesday broadcast of Midnight's Edge After Dark because I had a surprise visit from an exterminator going around the building and spraying for ants. Apparently there was ants in the apartment building, and so they sent out exterminators, so I had to deal with the exterminator being here at the time that I would have been on the show with Tom Connors and the other guys. But hopefully next week, nothing will get in my way of talking about comic book movies and stuff and everything else aside. I am also, at least actively, trying very hard to get my next Living on Borrowed Crime interview. The really important part is that the person that I'm attempting to contact actually gets back to me or ever sees my email or I'm sending to the right email. I even tweeted out at somebody the other day as a long shot because the email apparently wasn't working. And I tell you what, true crime content creators, once you start talking to them, they're almost always very friendly and very, talkative people and like interacting and stuff. But just getting your foot in the door is just sometimes so difficult. I don't know. It's probably because I'm a tiny little channel compared to most of the channels that I'm trying to get attention from, and probably got plenty of other things to do. But anyway, that aside, I don't see any other arguments for squares to be circled. Oh, wait. Her thing about what being definitional covered as the dictionary definition of was word salad. Oh, the dictionary definition of Yeah, I'm trying to remember the specifics of that. I remember her saying it, and I remember commenting how that didn't really make a whole heck of a lot of sense. So I guess in that way, in the war of word salad, what can I say? You won me over.
Oh, won't somebody please?
Bingo. B-I-N-G-O. Okay. Right?
So there you go, guys. I think that'll be our last bingo for tonight. And just by a hair. Just by a hair. Also, Payar, Debayar, good evening. All right, so I promised, and I have to deliver, a link to the Discord server. Link is in the chat now. If you're not part of the Discord server, all you have to do is click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you are not a bot, have watched the stream, at least to this point, and have earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is compassion. Just say hello, compassion, and I'll know that you watched the show. Beyond that, if you'd like to see any of my other hijinks out on the evils of social media, you can follow me on X at scribe_light. And well, I'd also ask that if you haven't already, please like the stream, leave a comment after it's posted, and if you're not already, subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell icon. Also, I have a merch store. There's a link in the description. And all the other things I'm supposed to do as a YouTuber. You know, they send me these messages now. There's this whole YouTube initiative called High Five, and they send you like these little like tips or encouraging things or whatever. When I first received it, it said, "Hey, click here and get a gift certificate to Domino's." And I'm like, wow, a gift certificate to Domino's. And it didn't work the first 4 times I tried, but then eventually I did get, and I'm not kidding here, a $15 gift card to Domino's. It paid for half a pizza, but hey, that's a half I didn't have before. So that was great. You know, and I got this thing. I'm on this list apparently because I'm like a long-time YouTuber. I've been a partner for nigh on 8 years now, which I guess is a record for some people. And so, wow, $15. I can almost buy a stick of gum with that these days. Hey. But yeah, apparently, supposedly, the things that I'm doing, I'm not a very good YouTuber. I'm really not. I don't shill my merch store. I oftentimes forget to, say like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. I've always depended on the kindness of strangers to just kind of do it of their own volition. But I'll beg occasionally. I'm not quite sure what good that does me, but you never know. Anyway, I'm just babbling now. Buying some time. Oh, we hit the hour and 30-minute mark. That's what I was aiming for. Okay, I talked much longer than I meant to. Anyway, everybody, thank you for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or please do take a moment and check out the fundraisers at the top of the chat box. And I am playing favorites, specifically Roan Harushans. Please take a look at that and donate if you are able. A family decidedly in crisis right now could use your help if you have it to give. Everyone, thank you again for joining me. Moderators, I've already said this. I am on a one-track mind. One-track mind. Anyway, everyone, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday and your Friday ahead of you and the weekend as well. And I hope you're all safe and well. More well than my brain right now. And if you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.